We've been overly dependent on diamonds. We've taken a very heavy knock on that front, but we are also looking to diversify within the mining sector, look at critical minerals, which we have plenty of. We have copper, nickel, we have cobalt, we have many other critical minerals, and we will be looking to leverage on our endowment in these regards to now begin industrialization, beneficiation, light manufacture, and processing of all these minerals so that we don't export them raw.
Has Botswana benefited from the Africa Free Trade Area in any way so far?
Well, it's still in its nascent stages, and Botswana is looking to benefit. That's why Botswana is reaching out, because in critical respects, there will be aggregation of produce in order to service certain markets which each country operating individually would not be able to service. That will unlock value. It will enable us to collaborate amongst ourselves as African countries.
On this matter of trade, if the Africa Growth and Opportunities Act, which allows duty-free access of certain African products to the US, is not renewed when it expires in the coming weeks, what does that mean for your country?
Well, it presents immense challenges because it will block off access to what has been a very huge market and a very lucrative market for African goods. We need to now be resilient enough, and if we are able amongst ourselves on the African continent to open these trade channels, that market that we would otherwise lose, we should be able to at least claw back a substantial part off from the African continent, the 1.5 billion.
Any sense on how many jobs could potentially be lost in your country if it's not renewed? What are your economists telling you?
For us, and the biggest commodity that accounts for trade between us and the United States is our diamonds. And that is why our focus has been to push for a zero tariff, especially on diamonds. But of course, we are pushing for a better deal on AGOA, not just for ourselves, but for the rest of Africa.
How far are your negotiations on zero tariffs for your diamonds?
We are at an advanced stage. I think we are on the verge of reaching an agreement. And it looks like Botswana will probably be the first to conclude an agreement, and which will then be broadened to cover other African countries.
Speaking of agreements between African countries and the United States, what do you make of the third country deportations that the US has been championing for? Many of your neighbors have signed up onto it.
There are certain concessions that African countries need from the US. And the US is now presenting certain demands to these African countries and saying, in order for us to give you these that you are asking for, would you consider the following from our side? So it's something of a quid pro quo. You give me this in exchange for that. And a lot of the times the African countries have very little choice in the matter. And so strategically, one appreciates why some or many of them might, in the short to medium term, take the propositions that are given to them by the United States.
Have you been approached to receive migrants?
No, we have not. There's been no formal approach to us, but we've been talking about the tariffs. So maybe in the context of that, we might hear and we'll have to contend with.
What would your choice be off the top of your head? You're the ultimate, you're the CEO of the country.
We'll consider it when it comes. We'll do whatever is in the best interests of our country. The difficulty with some of the challenges that face the African countries is that multilateralism is taking a beating. It's receding, or is being pushed back, and pushed back vigorously, with the result that as survival responses, countries are approached individually. When you are faced with a behemoth of a situation or a block, and you have to survive in order to then build yourself into the formidable force that you ought to be in order to engage at par What option do you take? Do you take an option that poses an immediate existential threat to you, or you take an approach that gives you some play at the joints? Some of these initiatives that the African Union is putting into place, among them the African Continental Free Trade Area, the digital trading platforms that are now coming up to enable seamless trade, should enable African countries to rely more on domestically mobilized resources. The moment we get to that point where we don't need to rely on external finance, then I think the African continent will be well on its way to asserting itself and pushing back against some of the movements and machinations that are at play.